What's going on, guys? So in this video, we are going to have a strategy session with no code. And hopefully by the end of this video, your knowledge and your experience, as well as your wisdom concerning no code, should improve dramatically. Okay? Because the topic of today's video is 5 crucial mistakes you are making with no code, or how to make no code work for you. So let's begin. So the first mistake people are making with no code is that they're focusing too much on tech, okay? This is very, very important to understand because the whole purpose of no code is to abstract away the problems that you're typically having with tech. The whole idea is to never learn programming, to never learn those complicated algorithms, to never really learn like the intricacies of memory management and design patterns and all that stuff, right? It's to forget about all that. It's to have an idea and to be able to, build a prototype for it and later on build an MVP, which we're going to get to in a second, and build an app and start making money very, very quickly. And so, yes, to a certain extent, you should probably, understand a little bit of the tech, right? You need to know some tech knowledge. You can't just build a tool. There's no tool out there that's gonna go out and code for you an app just by peeking inside your brain, right? You can't do that. That is why we have videos about we're trying to understand the UI, the workflows, as well as the data, the underlying data. We have something called an MVC, model view control, and all that. So you need to understand it to a certain extent, but it's minimal compared to if you are a developer. Compare that if you're a software developer, if you're actually writing apps from scratch, you're doing memory management, you're doing pointer arithmetic, right? Something that I had to do back when I was starting out, right? We don't need to do all that. And so what I'm trying to say here is that you need to focus on the business. Business is number one. Business is like 90%. The other 10% is tech, or what's left of it, because you don't really need to do a lot. So do not focus too much on the tech. Focus on the business. Focus on solving problems. The tech will come. The next crucial mistake people are making, and maybe you're making this mistake as well, is marrying a tool, okay? I always recommend to know 3 tools fairly well. One of these tools is going to be a web app tool. So something like Appgyver or Bubble or Backendless or something along those lines, maybe Thunkable. The next tool that you should know is a mobile first tool. So something like Adalo, Glideapps, Appgyver also comes into play, but Adalo is one of my favorite ones. There's a lot of tools in this category. And the third tool could be a tool in one of the following categories. So this could be Backendless, this could be Thunkable, this could be another tool. And you always want to be understanding the functionalities, the limitations, the benefits of every single tool. You do not want to marry a tool. You do not want to become an expert in Bubble and try to fit everything around Bubble. Yes, it is possible to do that. It is possible to become an expert in Bubble. There are lots of people that just focus on Bubble. But in my opinion, they are tools. Remember, guys, they are tools. It's like you have a hammer, you have a screwdriver, you have pliers, you have scissors. Sometimes you need a hammer, right? Sometimes you need a screwdriver. Sometimes you need an electric screwdriver. Sometimes you need scissors, right? If you need to cut a piece of paper, you're not going to use a hammer, right? You're also not going to use a screwdriver. If you need to screw a screw in, you're not going to use hammer. Yeah, you could use a hammer, but it's probably not going to be a good idea. And so I'm really not a big fan of becoming an expert in a particular tool. Because, for instance, let's say, you get started with Bubble. You watch like 1 million Bubble tutorials. You love Bubble. You know how to do everything in Bubble. That's great. That's awesome. But let's say you want to build a mobile app and you want to build a prototype very, very quickly. Yeah, you can probably do it with Bubble, right? You can build a reactive UI using Bubble. That's going to be mobile. It's going to show up on mobile and all that. But it's a lot easier to build a mobile prototype in something like Adalo. And so that is why on my channel I cover various tools, because all they are is tools. You have a toolbox, you're working, let's say you're fixing your house, you're fixing a car, you have a toolbox, you don't have a screwdriver, and you try to fit every problem to be solved with a screwdriver. You don't do that, right? So that is why I recommend knowing at least 3 tools. One web app tool, another one mobile first tool, and the third tool, this could be to your in your discretion. Maybe it's going to be another SaaS app tool or another mobile tool or something else. And that is why I'm always talking about different tools, because there are pros and cons to each one. And the idea is when you have a problem, you want to pick a tool and you do not want to marry a tool. Very, very important. The next one is a very, very common problem that a lot of people have. And this is not just concerning no code. This is also concerning pretty much everything. Programming, no code, any other kind of topic, any other idea, IT, non-IT, doesn't really matter. And that is tutorial obsession, okay? A lot of people, what they do is they watch a million tutorials. They watch like all the videos on my channel, which I do appreciate. So I definitely thank you for that. They watch all the videos on other no-code channels. They read everything there is to know about, all the tools. They become experts in Bubble. But they never go out and they try to build an app, right? Practice is a lot better than theory, right? You do not want to be just learning all the time without building anything. I have seen people on forums, on Bubble forums, on other forums, talk about different scenarios, and I could tell from the way they phrase the question, from the way they, their previous questions, that they probably have never actually went out and tried to build an MVP, which we're going to get to in a second. So yes, tutorials are great, but you want to be doing tutorials only as a way to a means, right? Only as a means to an end, meaning that you're trying to solve a problem and you don't know how to do it, and you go out and you watch a tutorial to solve that problem. You don't watch a tutorial all by itself, unless you're not interested in using any of these tools to solve problems. Maybe you are an academic, maybe you're a theorist, right? In that case, yeah, you can just watch tutorials every day. But trust me, you're gonna learn a lot quicker when you have a means to an end. So when you have a problem that needs to be solved, okay, you want to build a mobile prototype, you go out, you watch a couple of tutorials on Adalo's website, and you build that prototype. You don't start watching tutorials without having an end. Okay, so it's very, very important. You're gonna be a lot more effective. You're gonna learn a lot quicker, and you're gonna be a lot more successful if you're doing it in a way to solve a specific problem. Okay, so very, very important point. The next one is not building an MVP first, or something called feature creep. And this is a very, very common problem. In fact, this is a truly prevalent in all kinds of areas, right? Programming, IT, no code, anything. And this is especially common with beginners. So let's say you have an idea for an app, okay? And I'm speaking from experience. I've made this mistake too many times to count, okay? So now I'm very, very careful. And I want you to save the time as well. So how do we avoid making this mistake? Well, it's actually very, very simple. Number one is you focus on the business side. Okay, this is the first point, right, on this list, is you want to be focusing on tech. And so what I mean by that is that you're not coming from a technical angle, right? You're coming from a business angle. And your point is to build the first version in order to have a conversation with a user or users. Remember, guys, software is a conversation between you and users. That's all it is. And different versions of that software are different steps of this conversation. It's like, I meet my friend and we have a conversation about something. Maybe this is a general conversation. Maybe he has a certain, dilemma, a certain problem he needs advice on. So we meet in a coffee shop, we talk for an hour, then we leave. Then maybe a week later, we meet again. That first time we met, that's version 1.0. The second time we met is version 2.0, because we're starting at a different stage. This is exactly what software is. So the first thing that you need to do is you need to build an MVP. And this MVP is called a minimal viable product. And I talked about that in some of the previous videos. And all it is basically to validate your theory that you're building something that's going to help people so much that in exchange they're going to give you money. If you're building something and nobody cares, it's not going to work. If you're building something people care but they're not willing to pay you, it's not going to work, right? You need to build something that solves their pain points, makes their life better in some way, improves their life in some ways, that they're willing to give you money in return, right? That is kind of what you want to be thinking. That's what an MVP does. And a lot of people, they are so obsessed with the thought and kind of with the idea they have that it's gonna be great, it's gonna solve a lot of problems, that they do not build an MVP. They go through what is called the feature creep. Basically, they build out this amazing app with a ton of bells and whistles because they want to impress people. They want people to like the app. They don't want to build like a basic app just to test a theory that there's actually a problem, because they're afraid of failure. So instead of making like a very, very basic app, they're gonna build an amazing app with bells and whistles. The kind of app that a lot of companies and individuals spent years building, because it was like an evolutionary process. And this person, they lock themselves in the closet. And I'm speaking from experience. I've done that many times before. And believe me, it hurts. And this is not the best way of doing it. Locking yourself in the closet, building out an app, spending 6 months of your precious life, building an app, and just to realize that, it's not something that you thought it's going to be. As a result, what we want to do is we want to start a conversation. We want to approach the person and we want to say, hello, how are you? If they do not answer, they don't want to talk to us, then we want to abandon the conversation. We don't go out and we don't prod them. We don't bug them, right? We don't continue the conversation if they do not want to have a conversation with us. We're not going to force anything, right? When you're building multiple features and you're creating a lot of apps, before you validated your idea, you're basically forcing your app down people's throats. And that is not something you want to do. It's not going to be success. If you build an MVP, right, your minimal viable product, nobody's interested, then that's That's awesome, because you just saved yourself a lot of time, a lot of heartache, a lot of stress, a lot of sleepless nights working on an idea, on a product, on a solution that nobody really cares about. So number 4 is build an MVP first, and that is why NoCode is so awesome, because you can easily build an MVP and people are gonna love it. And if they don't, great, you can just build another MVP. That is why in the beginning it's all about ideas. Ideas are cheap, ideas are expendable, because everybody has an idea. And that is why you want to go through ideas very, very quickly. You want to validate them very, very quickly. And an MVP allows you to do that. And in my view, let's say spending a month and building 10 MVPs is a lot better than spending 6 months and building like a huge app that might not be interested by anybody, right? That people might not be interested in, right? That's a big waste of time. Whereas if you build 10 MVPs in that period of time, or even in a shorter period of time, that's going to be a lot better. So very, very important. Keep this in mind. Last but not least, giving up after an MVP, okay? Sometimes, and there are cases where you build an MVP and you don't have like a very strong reaction, but you don't have a non-reaction. You kind of have a lukewarm reaction, right? Let's call it a 50% reaction, meaning that I build an app, people are interested, but they're not exactly, just signing up in droves. They're not signing up by thousands, by 10,000. It's not an outright success, but it is a success because people are talking about it. You don't want to give up at that point, right? Your MVP, it started a conversation, right? There are many, many ideas in real world where people build an app and they got some traction. So Instagram is a perfect idea. Instagram initially was supposed to be like a social network where people were going to do all these things. But what they discovered is that people really like the filter functionality. They really like the fact that you can upload pictures and it has these built-in filters and you can make it really nice. And actually, just saying it right now in today, a lot of people would just, shrug and say, filters, what's the big deal? Well, back then when Instagram was created, that was a big deal, like allowing you to filter, create like amazing effects right on your phone. That was a revolution. It was a revolutionary technology back in the day. So what they noticed is that they noticed that people were spending a lot of time on this specific feature of the app. So it wasn't a complete failure. It wasn't a complete success right out of the gate. But what they noticed is that people are using a certain part of the app a lot more than some of the other parts. And same thing with Facebook. A lot of these apps, right? Uber is a perfect example. Uber started out as a kind of a premium car service, right? It was a way to order a limousine, and for like a special night out, right? Like not everybody has a limousine, and limousines are expensive. So the idea was, it's a way to rent or to get a premium vehicle, maybe even with a driver, for a special night out. But then they noticed that what people actually liked was the fact that you can order a car with a phone, right? You just, it'll say your car, you just specify your current location, you specify where you want to go, and then the driver comes and picks you up. That wasn't what they realized initially, because initially they developed it for a completely different business case. But what they noticed is that people were doing something else. So in this point, you're building an MVP, you're starting a conversation, but you want to be nimble and you want to be dynamic. You want to check. If nobody cares, there's no response, you should probably abandon it. It's probably not something people are interested. If you get a strong response, great, you just hit the jackpot. But most of the time, 80% of the time, right? But most of the time, it's going to be a situation where it's kind of a gray area. It's not black, it's not white, it's not an outright home run, it's not a complete failure. It's kind of in the middle, it's in this gray area. And in that case, you need to kind of study more what people are doing, talk to them, email them. There's all kinds of web tools that you can get. One is called intercom.io, and you can chat with people. There are tons and tons of tools where you can survey people, right, inside your NoCode app, right there, where you can chat with people and you can figure out what they want. So do not give up after an MVP unless it's complete washout, right? Nobody really cares. You're not getting any response. In that case, I would probably move on to another MVP. And that is why you want to have lots and lots of ideas. And that is why a lot of companies fail. A lot of apps fail, like 90% fail or whatever, 95% fail, because ideas are cheap. Right? That is why you need to go through multiple ideas until you get something that has a reaction with the people. Maybe it's not going to be an outright reaction. That's absolutely fine. Perhaps people are going to kind of, deal with your app, kind of interact with it, interface with it, and they're going to be using a small subset of the features. In that case, you should focus on those features and ignore the rest. That is how a lot of successful products are out on the market as you know them right now. And a lot of these products did not exist in this form that you're familiar with them. They probably exist in some other form. And then through different stages, it's called the pivot in software. They pivoted to another area. They started out as one thing. They noticed people were doing something special with them, and then they pivoted to another area. That's point number 5. So just to summarize really quickly, focusing too much on tech. Do not focus on tech. If you want to focus on tech, become a software engineer, become a developer. The whole idea here is that we're business people now. We're building an app and we don't have to hire a developer. We can do it ourselves. That's the beauty of it, really. Number 2, marrying a tool, okay? Yes, it's a good idea to become an expert in a specific tool. Yes, I am not discouraging you from doing that, but it's a tool. Remember, it's just a tool. It's a hammer. It's a screwdriver. It's scissors. It's a knife. It's just a tool for different purposes. Do not get married to a tool. Always be learning. Always be learning and studying new tools. And that is why I'm covering different tools on my channel here. Number 3, tutorial obsession. All right? This affects a lot of people. You want to be building something to solve a problem. It's a tool, right? It's not a religion. It's not something we need to memorize forever. It's a tool. It's there to help us, not the other way around. Very, very important distinction. Not building an MVP for us. Feature creep. Yeah, a lot of people build out an app with all the features, with all the bells and whistles, and then they realize nobody really cares. That's going to hurt. Build an MVP, get it out into the market, put it in front of the users, the customers, the prospective customers, the clients, and see if they like it. If they don't, move on to something else. Last but not least, giving up after an MVP. Okay, your MVP has some traction, a little bit of traction, not a lot, not to a point where nobody cares. See what people are interested in and focus on that feature set. Do not be afraid of abandoning the features that are not being used. Focus on the features that are being used. The people decide, right? Your customers decide. They're in control. They decide what's going to work. Do not be stubborn and say, well, I built this app and they're going to be using this app because it's amazing. If they're not using this app, it's not, it's not an app that deserves to make money, right? It's not going to be a great app if there are no customers for it. People are in control. Focus on what people want and adapt your app to the market. Do not try to adapt the market to your app, because that's a recipe for a lot of stress and a lot of pain. Okay, I've done it before. I know what I'm talking about. All right, so these are the 5 crucial mistakes that you are probably making, or most certainly making, with no code. Now, I can make another list. And so if you enjoyed this video, all I ask is you leave a like on this video, you leave a comment with a question, thought, any idea. You like this video, you didn't like it, maybe you want to see more of these things. I can make another 6 through 10, another 10 things that you're making with no code. There's a lot of mistakes people are making. So if you want to see another video, make sure you give this video a like, you leave a comment letting me know, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel if you are interested in building all kinds of apps without writing a single line of code. Thank you so much for watching this video. Hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you guys next time.